Hello and welcome to Easy Like a Sunday Morn. I'm your host, TheShaneLockwood, and this is episode 29. It is the 12th of October 2014, and I'd like to say thank you to each and every person who tunes in each and every week, and a special welcome aboard to all those who are listening for the very first time. I just want to say thank you to everybody who generates traffic to the podcast, whether it's positive or negative. It's all traffic and it's all good. Thank you for the likes and loves and adding me to your favorite podcast app. That's absolutely fantastic. In today's show, it's a continuation of the ongoing interview with Raggy Ragsdale. It was rather long, and I've had to edit the show to cut out parts where I'm talking about previous work history, etc. And I just don't think that was sort of relevant. I started to go on and on a little bit. You guys don't want to hear that, so I cut that out. So it does appear like Raggy is talking for most of the show, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of you would prefer him over me anyway, but I digress. We ended last week's show talking about him counselling people who are same-sex of preference and whatnot. I cut the show short just before he told a punchline to a joke, and what I've done is I've gone back and just played the last section of what he said from last week's show and went on into the punchline and so on and so forth. So you'll hear him talk about that, the punchline, and then on with the show. Because I cut bits out, I'm talking about a workmate, a female work colleague that I'm still friends with, and we get along really, really well. So I'm talking about her in just in passing. So if there's a reference to she or whatever, that's who I'm talking about. And it doesn't make sense out of context if you don't know that little piece of information. Anyway, I've rambled on for far too long. This is a longer show than normal, as you'd expect, because it's a Raggy Ragsdale show. But I will see you at the end of the interview for details of how you can support the show. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the show.
Life is short, and you found somebody you love. That's wonderful. Now, what seems to be the problem? That's how I feel.
Yeah.
Well, now, except, if a guy comes in and brings his goat. And, that could happen. And you look at him and you say, this is not normal. He says, no, it's female goat. I'm not gay. See, they used to do that in the 60s. You could tell that kind of joke. Because at the time, it was the vernacular. To me, it was a funny joke, and it still is, but it has left the realm of the stereotype, which can be funny to the other stereotypes. But when it entered the realm of the personality of people, where they live, their feelings, and how they think, and who they perceive themselves to be, then the joke is not really funny. It becomes a mirrored reflection of how flawed we have become, as a civilization. And I don't want anybody to ever, in my presence, to feel that who they really are is offensive to me. It isn't. And that they would apologize for it mortifies me, because what must they think of me? That they would already assume that I'm either not going to like them, or I'm going to condemn them, or I'm going to get ugly about it. That means I haven't presented myself fairly, because I don't want anybody to think, if they come up to me and tell the truth, that I'm going to bash them, because it's not my truth. No, it's truth. It doesn't matter. If it's their truth, then I respect it and I love them for it. And I would never say things like, well, some of my best friends are gays. Man, That is Horatius. That is Horatius. I've got a lot of friends. You know, some of them are gay, some of them are straight, some of them are bi, whatever that is, and some of them are tri. Hey, I've heard about those. And, okay, they're people first.
Yeah.
You know, I hate it when people define themselves by their sexuality first, or their color, or their race, their nationality, or their religion.
Yeah.
When someone says, well, I'm a white man. No, sir, you're a man, and you happen to be white. I see the person first. The color is there. I can see it. I'd be dummy if I couldn't see it and pretend it, well, there ain't no difference now. Oh, yeah, there's a great deal of difference. You should be proud of it. Yeah. I am. But I ain't going to jump before it. Lord, if we all looked alike, acted alike, thought alike, well, what's my saying? If two people agree on one thing, what am I necessary? Huh? And if two guys are playing the same chords, you don't need both of them. Man, this is a great world if people would just open their arms and embrace reality. Yeah. And that, to me, that's the most important thing. So I've got some wonderful folks of all varieties who are sub to me. And some of them came in as trolls. Yeah. Because they knew I was a minister, and they came after me, and I would write them back and say, well, you know, thanks for watching. I appreciate the comment, and I hope you two are having a wonderful time. Matter of fact, there's a wonderful lady I watch on YouTube, and she has a lesbian channel. Yeah. And I was the first guy, I think, to write her and say, look, I love your video, and I love your videos, and I love hearing you people talk and share. Because of you, I'm a better man for my wife. She's been lovely to me ever since. And some of her friends have written and said, you sure you're a preacher? You see, that's the stereotype. Yeah. You sure you're gay? Yeah. It's the same thing. They don't realize they've just done the same thing back to me. You know what? It's okay. Because I understand we do it accidentally. Yeah.
But, I mean, and there are, like I was saying, the subdivisions, but they're divisions. They think they're things that divide us rather than uniting us, rather than trying to find some common ground. And that's what I like about YouTube, is that anybody with a camera can record anything and upload it. Now, some stuff will get flagged and taken down. Obviously, there's certain ideas that are not conducive or beneficial, but everybody has a voice, and you know, so you can find out. So for example, a friend of mine. No, I wanted to know what the big fuss was to do with gay marriage or marriage equality. I'm thinking, well, why, if because this being from an ignorant sort of point of view, was I think, well, why is marriage so important to gay people? Isn't it something that only hetero people sort of really cared about? And no. What it was like, it was the fact that they weren't allowed to do this. This is something they wanted. This is something that they could be proud of, and to say, hey, we've made a commitment and we want to tell everybody about it, and we want people to accept us as we accept ourselves. And so,
but more importantly, they need affirmation from the community, the entire community, because they might be in a relationship 20, 30, 35 years, living together, working together, pooling their finances and resources, paying separate taxes and stuff. And their togetherness has lasted longer than 70% of the folks I've married, who were both one and the other. And they're saying, you know, we fit the bill. Now, procreation, we have options. Artificial insemination. People are afraid, well, your kid's going to be born in that condition. Not necessarily. That's not the way it works. But what if the society saw them as the answer to all of these abandoned children and babies, and they could go out and offer them a home and everything that goes with that, and showing them love between two people? It's not going to really change the mindset of the child. I knew a lot of folks who grew up in that situation, and they are, according to my understanding, straight as they can be, because that's the way their brain is wired. You can't teach somebody, hey, look, you're going to like it, man. Just drop your pants. Nobody's looking. Bring that cow to the stump. You're going to have a good time. And somebody's going to say, I'm not really a cow person. And, I know everybody here does it, and I've watched it all my life, but I just don't think that's something I want to try. And so you just don't become something because you're immersed in it.
Yeah.
You become something because it's a part of who you are.
Yeah.
And those that struggle to get away from it are those who grew up and accepted it as what you ought to be. They tried it, and they didn't feel comfortable. And then they would many times come to me and say, look, I don't know what's wrong. I'm living this lifestyle. I thought it was great and it was right, but I don't feel comfortable about it. I said, well, do you feel comfortable looking at it? Well, yeah. Well, then go. Do that.
Yeah.
You've tried this. It's not who you are. Find out who you are and complete somebody's life. That's really what love is about, is that you complete somebody's life. And if you don't add to it, together you become a whole person, a whole entity, a whole life form. You don't become two lives stacked on top of each other. If you do, something's not right. It should merge. It should not, become a burden for somebody to carry and then swap positions, and then we'll carry you for a while.
Yeah.
It should be a time when you're completed.
Yeah.
And when you meet that person, it doesn't matter who they are or how they're defined physically or whatever, and you find yourself being complete in that relationship, then you got to ask yourself the price. Is it worth it? And when you decide it's worth it, then you hold hands, you face the world, and you say, this is who we are. And you know what? You are now like YouTube trolls.
Yeah.
We thank you for watching. We appreciate your comment. And we hope you come back again, because when we're at the beach and we're both in our bikinis or our spandex, whatever they're wearing, a view is a view. And if you look at me and I see desire in your eyes, you know what? That should be a compliment and not an insult, no matter who looks at you. Yeah. If guys look at guys, there was a time I got a video about it when I was really ugly about it. And then one time I realized, wait a minute. And when I got an offer another time, and he was very blatant and very clear, my fault. I was walking a little dog around the lake for my neighbor, didn't realize that was a sign, and he rolled down his window and made me a wonderful offer. And I turned around and I said to him, you know what? I'm straight, but I got to thank you for asking, and I appreciate it. If somebody desires you and has the timidity to admit it, then you don't get angry at them. You literally think, here I was feeling unattractive, and at least to this one guy or one woman, whatever, that they've made it clear that there's something there that they want to pursue for whatever reason. You'll find out soon enough. But I just believe in people need to be people, and let other people be other people. And just because someone is different doesn't mean they're wrong. It just means they have another opinion. And I've got no problem when people have other opinions. That's what I say. I'll watch all my friends' paranormal activities. I comment on them. And I tell them, do this and this. One of them was in a cemetery one night and kept saying, and I love it, I did a video with a hat on just because of him tonight, because he had a video with a hat, and it was wonderful. Yeah. And he was out there in a cemetery, I think it was in Scotland or someplace, and he kept asking them, are you here? I mean you no harm, only respect. If you're here, make the lights, on the EMF, that meter jump. Yeah. And so I wrote him, because he knows I don't believe, but I love him. I love the program. And I wrote him, I said, look, it's sort of like my understanding about the computers and them not knowing about it. If these people died in Scotland 200 years ago, is it possible they don't speak, the English language, and they don't know what an EMF meter is? And so when you say make the light flicker in this EMF meter, they have no idea what you're talking about, because they didn't have electric lights back then, battery-operated machines. They didn't have any of this stuff. So I think he went out and learned a few phrases in the dialect of the day, and he uses that. And I was saying, I'm happy to be able to help, to offer my suggestions, even as a skeptic and non-believer, and say, look, would there be a real solid basis of truth for this? I can see where you're not getting the results that you're actually looking for. Now, you're getting some results. I love watching the program, but what if you went to a French cemetery and you actually spoke to them in French? not English, because bet you they haven't learned a new language since they departed this mortal coil. And a lot of them don't think about that. And so the same is true with humanity. When we go into a place, a party, a bar, a church, you name it, we speak the language that someone else doesn't understand. And it mystifies them. And it frightens us because we're not getting what we want, the result we think we want. And the truth is, we don't understand. So what I did was I got rid of my understanding years ago. What I live by now is acceptance. I don't understand half the things I do. I certainly cannot understand the things anyone else does. What I've learned to do is accept them, because I would just want them to accept me. Even if they don't understand and we have different opinions, let's sit down. If you want to talk about it, we will. If it's politics, no. If it's religion and that you're trying to convert me, I won't try to convert you. Then I don't talk about politics, religion, or the war when I'm in a club. It's strictly forbidden, because those are things you don't address in the general public. That's what you would call slang. You can talk about it at home. But, all these people that talk about this stuff, about words you can't use, don't use, and shouldn't use, every one of them do it at home, and you know it. Yeah. And if they don't do it at home out loud, they do it when they're driving in their cars. Yeah. And you know what? Why shouldn't they? Yeah. And if they can keep it from entering into the public domain where it injures someone, then what they do on their own time is their own business, as long as it's prejudice, meaning that you have a prejudged position about how you view reality, and it doesn't turn into racism or bigotry. Yeah. See, that's the problem. Yeah. It's not the thought. It's what people do because they think someone else is wrong, meaning they don't agree with me. That's beyond understanding. So what I can do is I can accept that people have unusual thought patterns besides the kind I have, which are extremely unusual to them. Yeah. And I won't fight them about it. I'll just say to them, it's okay. I don't mind. You go ahead and feel free. And I'm not offended by the language. As a matter of fact, I told a church person once can you believe it? Once I became a preacher, I never heard a funny joke from a church person. Oh, I'd hear them from other preachers. Yeah. But there are only two kinds of jokes. There's clean ones and there's funny ones. And once you became a preacher, they wouldn't tell you the funny ones. They would tell you the clean ones. Yeah. And I had a lady and one Sunday came up afterwards and she said something about, damn son. And I thought, whoa. And she looked at me and turned red. And she said, I am so sorry. And I said, for what? She said, because I said that word in front of you. I said, lady, I will give you $50 for every one of those words you say that I don't know. And I will give you $100 for every one of those words you know that I haven't used in the last 24 hours. I said, don't you ever apologize to me. And it just galls me that they do the same. We do the same thing to everybody. Yeah. I mean, it's not just the racist or the sexist thing. We do it to everybody. Yeah. And it's acceptable because for some reason we see sexuality issues, no matter what religion. I mean, that happens insanely all over the world. We see those kinds of issues as totally different from the exact same thing that we do, because we think for some reason it has an eternal or a galactic, application. Yeah. While the things we're doing are simply earthbound, like lawyer jokes, for heaven's sake. See, those are earthbound, but they got sensitive, got mad. The greatest mafia jokes I ever heard was when I was working in clubs that were run by the mafia. Best people I ever worked for, by the way. Right. And they would tell them, I would tell them, and they would laugh, and laugh. But then it became a sensitive issue, and it had to stop. Now, they could tell them, but we could no longer do it because we weren't part of them. Okay. And see, that's the thing, is when we're not a part of that community, it's almost like someone says, you don't have the right to the language. And in some ways, they're correct. But the fact is, if they can still use the language in front of us, and we're forbidden to use the language, that drives a wedge between us, and we get very angry at the symptom. And it manifests itself as an attack on the individual or the group. Yeah. Like Ross Perot, that poor little man, he had great ears, big ears, big ears. And when he stood up one night and he said something about you people. Now, I grew up with that expression.
Yeah.
I was in a band. The band director said 100 times an hour, you people do this, you people do that. I said it in front of my wife three times a few years ago, and she climbed down my throat.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. And I said, what? She said, you're talking to your son, your daughter, and me, and you called us you people. And I thought, you're the only people in the room. There's me and there's you people. Yeah. There's me, this person, you people. And I thought, there's another one that's been altered to seem like some kind of community attack against a single community.
Yeah.
Instead of it simply being linguistically accurate. You know, there's you people over there on this side of the room, there's you people over there. Well, you say that now. And there are a lot of people that get very angry because they have been taught that that's a curse word. That's profanity. You have taken something sacred to them, their skin, their race, their sex, their nationality, and you have profaned it. And understanding that is difficult, but I came to believe it. And once I understood that I had to accept it, then I just turned the switch in my head and said, I can do that. I'll have to work on it, but I can do that.
Yeah.
So, it's a crazy world we live in. I mean, what's that guy said? One of my favorite quotes is, two favorite quotes. One is, the optimist says, this is the best of all possible worlds, and the pessimist agrees. I mean, that's just the nature of it. And the other one is, when someone says, it's a funny world, I always say, but nobody laughs.
Yeah.
Those are my two kind of favorite jokes. That's what makes me weird. They're looking for a punchline. They don't know they just got it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of crazy. So I trust you're going to make this into what? 3 or 4 programs?
Probably. I don't know what I'm
You're going to be editing like a rascal.
I don't know what I'm going to do with this.
Oh, God, I just noticed an hour and 31 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm here all night for you, man. You know that.
That's
anytime
okay.
you want to talk to me, I'm here.
Yeah.
But if you got to edit this thing down, whoa. You might want to start the outro music at this point.
Yeah.
Oh, and I was going to ask you, did anybody ever get in touch with you about writing a song? Several of them wrote me and said that they wanted to make some music for you.
No, they didn't.
Okay, well, that's the way it is. The world's filled with liars. I ought to know.
I find...
Rats. You just can't trust anybody anymore. First thing you know, you're born, stranger you don't know, picks you up by your feet, slaps you on the butt. It's a tough world, I tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And then they take a knife and cut you. Oh, twice.
Yeah.
Well, you're a guy. Yeah.
Yeah. I find that there's always a lot of... People seem to think that life is easier because they did something and it was easy for them.
It's a personality conflict, you see. You're so straightforward and honest.
Yeah.
And the world's not accustomed to that.
Yeah.
And when you're in a workplace that deals with creating an imaginary personality or image, and you don't have one, it's very difficult to manipulate someone who is who they are.
Yeah.
And it's nigh on impossible to alter their course because they don't understand any other course.
Yeah.
They don't know how to play the game of fitting in. They understand how to do the job.
Yeah.
But they don't understand. Now, when you have a boss, the boss looks at the overall office and says, I got, say, 40 people here. And they're all upset for whatever reason at one person. Now, for productivity's sake, do I replace the 39 because the one is right? Or do I do the unthinkable and get rid of the one? And most good bosses will think about product, customers, consumers, people who are working, and they will do the unimaginable. Preachers get moved every year, and it's hell because it's a personality thing, and it gets ugly beyond words. I mean, vicious, vile, and violent. And I understand. I've been in that situation many times, and it doesn't feel good. I know what that hell is.
Yeah.
But I always do this because of my simple faith system. I say to the wife who's generally in tears or mad enough to hurt, I say to her, if this wasn't supposed to be happening, it wouldn't, because somewhere along the way, I want something. And if I stay here and enjoy this, I'm not going to get what I want. And so whatever that is in the universe that controls all of this, that sort of promotes it, says, you asked for this, didn't you? Well, gosh, you're not ready to leave there yet. Let me fix it so you leave, because the next place you go is going to be so much better. And you know what? If you're not quite where you need to be yet, buckle up, son, because I'm going to do it again.
Yeah. Well, okay, so...
You know, after 60 years, Shane,
yeah.
I'm sitting where I'm going to die, right where I'm sitting here talking to you. I've never been happier.
Yeah.
That is the most wonderful thought that enters my mind every day.
Yeah.
That had all those things not happened, I would not be here right now, this second, having the time of my life. But if I'd have stopped it at any of those points of pain, I would have died frustrated.
Yeah.
Without a home.
Yeah.
I mean, a place to call home. Now I got one.
Yeah.
And so I see all of those things that look negative. And I always say, this is going to be great. Oh, it's painful. But man, is it going to be great. And it always has been. So I suggest you do the same thing. Because something, somewhere, however it's defined by whoever on this planet, seems to have plans for you. Because when that power, whatever it is, watches you and says, you know, if you stay here, you're just not going to be happy.
Yeah.
But you're not ready to leave because you're insecure.
Yeah.
And you have some fears there. And you have some driving needs of saying, this is what I want right now because I think I need it.
Yeah.
And that power says, you know what? I know what you need.
Yeah.
And this ain't it.
Yeah.
And if I let you have what you want, and you feel good, and you don't hurt, and you're going to get upset and anguish, you're going to be a miserable guy.
Yeah.
And that's the worst thing about preaching. Hospital beds, deathbeds, to have somebody get me along and say, I want to tell you something. And then they tell you about something that they wanted to do or wanted to be, and that they were miserable their whole lives because the comfort zone flowed around them. And they couldn't leave it. They didn't dare, whatever reasons, financial, family. But to have somebody die who didn't get to do what they wanted to do was the saddest thing to me.
Yeah.
And I always thought, why don't you do it? And when people come to me and say, well, look, I'll have to quit my job and start all over and do that, I say, quit it tomorrow.
Yeah.
And go. Have a life.
Yeah.
And become who you're meant to be.
A lot of people took my side of things, right? Because I sort of said, hey. But the problem is they played the game of don't say anything. We'll keep quiet. Because they're protecting their own...
Well, yeah, I would tell my wife in a church situation exactly like that. Generally in the smaller churches, two families compete to run it. One runs it for a certain length of time. And if they lose control and the new preacher comes in and they cannot regain control, they get rid of him or her as soon as they can because they're wanting to gain control. And when Denise says, well, why don't our friends stand up for us? And I keep saying to her, Denise, we're leaving. They're going to be here. And it's their families.
Yeah.
They're going to have to live with those people. They're not going to say anything because 10 years from now, they will never be forgiven. And they can't help themselves because it's blood related. And that's the biggest thing. We fought in Mississippi, and we're not like that.
Yeah.
I live in a dadgum transitional neighborhood. My end of the block is predominantly black, and they think I'm a narc. It just bugs me to death. I can't play blues with them because they're scared of them. And so I told them the biggest problem we had that people will not just recognize is that when we stand in the pulpit and tell them that racism is wrong, that sexism is wrong. Don't you understand their dear mothers buried 10 feet from the window where they're sitting out of respect, died believing those very things were wrong. If they dare say they agree that it was wrong, they have just spit on their mothers' graves and their mothers and their mothers. And so they're caught. They know in their hearts that it's wrong, but they don't believe mom ever lied to them. And she said it's wrong. And if we can ever get that generational infection, that enculturation out of us, then most all of these problems we've discussed would just go away. But we can't. What would Mama think of you? I've heard that so many times. What would Mama think of me if I voted yes on this? And I thought, your mama's dead. Uh-oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And she doesn't have time to change her mind. So what have we just told them? What have I just told them from the pulpit? People who think like this are going to hell.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, I've just condemned their mamas, their daddies, their whole family before them to hell because they thought like that.
Yeah.
They cannot dare let those souls perish because they died in a belief system that should have died long before they were born. But we keep it alive because we say it at home. See, that's what I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
We say things at home that are vulgar, profane, and teaching. And our children believe us.
Yeah.
And they love us. And in 10 years, they're not going to want to think, hold on, everything Daddy taught me was a lie.
Yeah.
And he didn't know it. I can't let him die a liar. So let's preserve that imitation of truth.
But what they're doing is they're just keeping the peace, right? And I understand that completely. But what had happened was, so they switched me from afternoon.
That's why I love you, Shane.
Oh, yeah.
One of my favorite things in life is to watch, particularly somebody like you, as you're climbing the mountain. And that's what you're doing. You've got to ascend the mountain before you can just spread out and fly like the dove.
Yeah.
And what I do, and what you will find, you're going to come into this one day, is this. I see all the people who brought so much raging hell into my life a year or so ago. I see every one of them. Actually, I redefined it. They're friends of mine. They're telling me things that my friends won't even tell me. Now, they're lying and exaggerating because they don't realize they're being used by a higher power for my good.
Yeah.
And if they succeed, I am going to be a better man for it. And when I see them, I smile, I wave, I shake their hands. I'll talk to them in the grocery store. They look at my long hair and they're disgusted. I think, blow it out your ear. But I realize they really are an integral part of this whole puzzle. And right now you're looking at all these pieces on the table and you pick one up and you're pondering it a lot. And then you're going to find that place where it fits, and then you're going to pick up another piece. That's what you do.
Yeah.
And you're going to ponder that piece because it's not right. The bulges and the holes are just not in the right place. Yeah. And it baffles you sometimes. But as that thing, more pieces go together, you suddenly begin to see the picture. You don't know what it is, but for the first time it makes sense. And those little pieces that have that strange color on them, there's that color. You just start popping them in. Yeah. And don't let them control your life because they're doing that, even at this moment.
Yeah. And I'm not angry. I mean, I was angry and...
Well, you should have been.
Yeah, I was
but I didn't show it.
I was absolutely furious, to be honest. We both shook our heads like, no, at the same time because we are on that level of communication. She understands me. When I go to work and she's on there, I am trying to make her laugh every shift because what we do is it's not a funny, jokey kind of atmosphere, but it doesn't need to be so heavy-handed and as crazy as it is. A bit of levity, it lightens everything. So my goal, and I've gotten to the point where, because what happens is she might snort when she laughs. So my goal is to make her laugh to the point where she will snort twice in a shift, right? That's hard, but I've gotten to the point where I can do that, right? And so she understands me. Yeah.
It's only when you throw yourself off and realize, I'd be dang, I'm not going to die. I'm not going to hit the rocks below like I thought I would. I'm going to sail. I'm going to soar. I'm going to fly above this and laugh and laugh and laugh and tickle myself with a feather when I go over the city and make as many people laugh as can. I'm going to wait till that spider drops on me at the corner of what you call it where you was. And that was, that was a laugh. That was funny as heck.
Well, that brings us to the end of this part of the interview with Raggy Ragsdale and the end of the show. As always, I close his segments with this.
Well, kiddies, geezers, I sign. Pass wipe. Till next we meet, this is old Uncle Raggy saying bye.
And it's also bye from me as well, before I go, please click like and use the code word research, 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 in the comment section down below, or in whichever app that you happen to be using. Please click like, click love, click the plus sign, subscribe, etc., etc. Please let me know which apps you're using. If you listen to the podcast with an app, I'd be more than pleased to know. And if you are using an app to listen to podcasts and my podcast is unavailable within that app, please let me know and I'll be glad to add it. Thank you once again for tuning in each and every week, and thank you for those once again who have tuned in for the very first time. That's all from me today. Look after yourselves, and may your Sunday afternoon and the rest of the week be easy like a Sunday morn. Oh, by the way, there should be a part 4 next week, and maybe even a part 5. No promises on the part 5, but we'll see. That's all from me today, and I'm out. Anything you can't deal with from now on in is your own problem. Bye.